All right. So till yesterday, can someone help me recap what we have covered till yesterday? All four steps. Don't just read out the steps, but you have to explain what all you did with respect to your problem definition. Just simple. I mean, simple steps.
Like yesterday, we have started with the defining the problem. After that, we have collected the evidence of the problem. After that, we have defined the criteria for each of the problem. And
You missed an important step. You constructed the alternatives. Right? So alternatives are nothing but the policy options that have the capability to solve the problem, right? So we covered first four steps, right? Towards the end, you also created something called criteria matrix, right? You can see. So what was criteria matrix? Criteria matrix was you identified 5 criteria. One was efficiency, equity, timeliness, legality, and administrative robustness. And you created a matrix where in the rows, if you can see that diagram, the rows they have the criteria, and the columns have the policy options. And before creating this matrix, you actually went on to define each of these criteria, right? So for efficiency, you define number of students enrolled, number of students enrollment per 10 lakh rupees, right? That's your efficiency, and that's your dominant criteria. Dominant criteria is the criteria which you are going to prioritize when you are thinking about the other policy options. So that's your, because it's a highlight. Oh, okay, okay. It's better? It's better? Sure. So the dominant criteria was the one criteria that you are going to prioritize when you are evaluating other policy options. Your other criteria were equity, which is educational outcomes for all the students across all sections of society. Your third criteria was timeliness, which is time taken to improve SDG 4 ranking in Meghalaya. Your fourth criteria was legality, which is it shouldn't violate the constitutional framework as well as the legal framework of state laws. And the fifth one was administrative robustness, which is lower transaction cost and least amount of leakages, right? Yes, and as I said, that you created a matrix in which you are going to fill some data with respect to other steps, right? There's one step which we actually missed yesterday. So the efficiency, the matrix, which you have said, number of students enrollment actually, uh, enrollment per 10 lakh rupees, right? It would have been better if you would have broken. So efficiency remains the same. I mean, as the criteria, efficiency would remain the same. But within that, if you could have broken that into two variables, which is number of students enrolled and cost, which will go on, which will be incurred for the enrollment of the students, right? It is nothing but the same sort of criteria. So what I'm trying to say is, your number of student enrollment per 10 lakh rupees, right? That's your criteria, right? You need to sort of further break it down, because for step number 5, it will be very difficult to find this data point. But it will be easy to find if you break this into two other sub data points, which is number of students that you think will be potentially enrolled, right? And the cost of the policy, cost that will go to enroll these students, right? Because if you divide this by this, it is nothing but number of students enrolled per 10 lakh rupees, right? If you divide this by 10 lakh of the cost, it's nothing but this criteria. But you won't find this data point. What data point you will find? You will find number of students enrolled and cost, right? So what I'm going to do in the matrix is I'm going to break that into two sub parts, which is number of students enrolled and the cost that you are going to incur. Right? So I mean, if you can come closer, you will see what I have done. come here. So efficiency I have broken down into two subparts: number of students enrolled and the cost that we will incur. So, for example, let's say these are policy option 1. So for policy option 1, if you apply policy option 1, what would be number of students enrolled? What would be the cost? What would be the potential educational outcome? Time taken, it does not violate laws, so plus and minus. Administrate low transaction cost and least amount of leakages, plus and minus, right? So this is how you need to sort of proceed with the next step. So basically you need to find data for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items, right? The moment you do, you will start getting a clearer picture of which of your policy option is the best suited option to solve the problem, right? And that is the mandate for step number 5. So step number 5, and I think we are going to spend a significant amount of time in this step because in this you actually need to quantify some of your projected outcomes, right? So we are going to project the outcomes. So you have identified 5 policy options. One was status quo, infrastructure, so on and so forth. Now for each of the policy option, you need to project the outcome, that what would be the outcome of that policy outcome if we proceed with that policy option, right? So this is actually the hardest step of 8-fold path, and it takes a significant amount of time and energy because a lot of research goes behind projecting the outcome. And for each of the alternatives, project all the outcomes or the impacts, right? So for example, for this policy option, if this is number of student, so for this policy option, how many number of students you think will be enrolled? For this policy option, how many number of students you think will be enrolled? Similarly for others. Cost. What will be the cost if you go ahead with policy option 1? What will be the cost if you go ahead with policy option 2? For policy option 3, 4 and 5. Then equity. Number of students enrolled if you go ahead with policy option 1. I mean, again, this is going to be a guesstimate. You have to do some research, but this is going to be a little bit of guesstimate, right? Number of students enrolled if you go ahead with policy option 2. Number of students enrolled for policy option 3. Remember, all these are projected outcomes, impact, potential impact that your policy option will bring. Timeliness. Do you think it's going to be within your timeline, plus or minus? If yes, then plus. If not, then negative. Similarly for all policy option. For legality, whether it is coming under legal framework, plus if yes, minus if not. And administrative robustness, because and be realistic. I mean, don't be like overly optimistic about your pet policy option, but be realistic that you think if policy option 2, which is infrastructure, let's say, it's going to have massive, administrative support. It would require massive administrative backup or resources. Then just be realistic, right? So it could be negative. I mean, I'm just assuming, right? I don't know. I'm hypothetically saying, I'm just using an example. It could be negative because overhauling infrastructure in, let's say, 5 years, it pans across the state might be difficult, right? So just be cautious of this thing, right? So it could be plus or minus. So administrative robustness, if yes, then plus. If not, then minus, right? So this is how you're going to project the outcome. So basically, you need to do research in number of students enrolled, which was the first part, cost, equity. For these 3 things, you need to find exact numbers, like guesstimate numbers. And for these, you need to sort of still do research. You still have to do research, but you have to sort of quantify using descriptors, which is either plus or minus. So first 3, I need numbers. The last 3, I need plus or minus. Right? It's clear, right? So if you can come to the slide, so there are basically 3 practical difficulties that need to be confronted when you are projecting the outcome. So policy is about the future, right? And I've been repeating this since yesterday. Policies are all about the future. Hence, subjective evaluation of outcome projections will be done using research. So as I said, it won't be completely accurate when you are projecting some of the outcomes, projecting some of the numbers, impact, but it has to be a little bit of subjective. But it has to be backed with some sort of solid, sound research, right? The second is realistic projection versus optimistic projection. So as I said that be optimistic, don't be too optimistic, be realistic when you are projecting the outcome. And do not glorify your preferred policy option, because I'm assume that all 5 of you will have one policy option in mind that you would prefer, right? That would be your pet policy option. So try not to glorify the outcomes of that one policy option. Just be realistic. Just look at what data is telling you and what your subjective evaluation as a group is telling you. Only put that number, that projected outcome in the grid, right? And think not only about the general direction, but also think about the magnitude, like quantify the outcomes. That's what I'm saying. Just quantify the outcome. Timeliness, legality, and administrative robustness, it could be plus and minus, but the other 3 or 4, you need to quantify your outcome. The third, fourth point is put yourself in the place of relevant stakeholders, your client, your audience, right? And ask how you would react to the proposed alternative, right? Because let's assume if you have already sort of selected a policy option, which is going to be your final option, just think about the stakeholders, about whether you are able to convince that person, that client, with the projected outcomes, right? So that's why it should be realistic and not overtly optimistic. Look out for unintended consequences, and unintended consequences was something that I briefly touched upon yesterday. These are sort of unanticipated problems that might arise if you're going ahead with one of the policy options. Let's say you're going ahead with infrastructure. One of the unintended consequences could be that there are too many buildings and students are not getting enrolled. So you just have like ghost schools all across the state and not many students are getting enrolled. So you need to be little cautious of the fact that there could be unintended consequences. So just keep that in mind, because towards the end of the policy analysis, in 8th step, you have to identify and present what are the unintended consequences also with some of the policy options, right? Common, undesirable but foreseeable side effects of policy solutions. So that's the classic example, definition of unintended consequences. Because of unintended consequences, your cost will increase, right? So rather than reducing the transaction cost or leakages, because of unintended consequences, the chances are high that your cost might increase rather than getting sort of, rather than being under control. So just be cautious of the fact that there could be unintended consequences. Now, as an activity, breakout activity for this step, you need to project the outcomes the way I have explained, right? So this is an example of an unemployment problem, right? The problem definition was unemployment. You have that grid, you already have the grid. So this is nothing but the criteria matrix which we created yesterday. We are going to now project the outcomes. So the cells that we created, the matrix we have created, we are going to project the outcomes and fill some numbers there, right? So if you can see the first 2 rows, the cost in crores and per number of jobs created, these are nothing but, in your case, it's cost of enrollment of the students and number of students that are getting enrolled. So this is efficiency. The first 2 rows, they are efficiency. That's efficiency. Time taken is timeliness, right? Visible leakages is administrative cost. Increase in taxation is also your transactional cost, because if you are saying that budget should be increased, which means that somewhere down the line some taxes would be increased, right? Because you need to tax something to get revenue so that you can deploy it in your for your policy option. So and if you see the numbers, so these are projected outcomes. So for example, for alternative 1, the cost will be 10,000 crores. For alternative 2, cost will be 13,000, 11,000, 40,000, 30,000. Similarly, number of jobs created will be 10, 1 cents, 100,000, does a lakh, 10 lakh for alternative 1, 80,000, 20,000, 17,000. Time taken 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. Leakages 4.5%, 3, 3, 5, and 1. And increase in taxation 2.5. Intuitively, which one of the policy option will be better? I mean, that's a question for you. If you are solving an unemployment problem, which one of the alternatives is a better alternative? And why?
In one.
Okay, why?
In one. The cost is less and the jobs created.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you see, the efficiency part is really maximum. You are creating 1 million jobs for 10,000 crores. Here you are creating 80,000, which is 20,000 less, but you are incurring more cost, right? Similarly, 20,000, which is just 1/5 of this at a higher price, right? 70,000 still at a far higher price and 15,000 at a higher price. Time taken, 2 years, least than all the other project alternatives, right? Possible leakages, 4.5%, which is decent enough. If you are creating 1 million jobs and you are having 4.5% leakage, it's still controllable, right? As compared to, let's say, 5%. And, you know, so for example, alternative 5 has 1% leakage, which is the minimal leakage. But look at the jobs. They're just generating 30,000 jobs. But you said that your dominant criteria is efficiency, right? That is why you said that, you know, alternative 1 is the best suited option, right? Increase in taxation, 2.5%, which is a decent percentage of taxation to generate 1 million jobs. This is a similar exercise that you have to do with respect to your problem definition, right? So you have this grid. You just need to create these sort of rows are already created. So first will be cost in crores or number of students already enrolled. Second will be cost in lakhs or in crores, if you can put cost to sort of go ahead with this policy option. Timeliness, legality, and what is other administrative robustness, right? So this is all you need to fill in your in the matrix. Just keep in mind that the projected outcomes must be technically feasible and meaningful also, right? So you should not have a highly ambitious sort of project that we will create infrastructure across state in 2 years, because that's not feasible, right? That's actually not feasible. It's a very outlandish, very ambitious sort of a project. So have a technically feasible and meaningful kind of outcome. Similarly for teacher training, I mean, you can't predict that in 1 year or 2 years you will be able to train all teachers across the state, right? That's completely highly ambitious project. So just be realistic when you are projecting the outcome. If you can't fill the cell with a quantitatively expressed descriptor, you can fill plus and minus. That's what I've been telling. So timeliness, legality, and administrative robustness, just put plus and minuses, right? So that's what we are going to do in the next 1 hour or so. This activity is going to be time-taking sort of activity. So I would urge all of you to use this chart. Probably you can come here, or I'll take it there. If you can shift this to the left. So you understood, right? Right? So number of students enrolled for this policy option and cost for this policy option, right? Number of students enrolled for this policy option, cost for this. Similarly for this and this and this. Educational, what is the projected educational outcome, right? For this policy option, for this, and for this, right? Again, example. So for example, you can research, for example, if policy number 3 is increase infrastructure. So just look at some research or data point that what are education outcomes? How do education outcomes improve if you improve the infrastructure, right? And just put some numbers based on the research or some sort of estimate or analysis that you will do. Again, time taken plus minus. Is it going to overshoot the timeline, or you think it's realistic within sort of 5 years, and put 5 years as your time sort of timeline for this policy, right? The 5 years. Similarly, legality for this and administrative robustness for this, right? You understood, right? The activity. So over to you. Let's take 1 hour and we'll convene back at 12. When is the tea break, Joy?
Between 11 and 11:30.
Sure. So you can get started, we'll take a tea break, and then probably after tea break, we can keep continuing doing this, right? But I want to spend more time here because this is the sort of, most important step. After this, all 3 steps are very easy, right? So this is a time-taking step. So I would like to spend good 70 to 75 minutes in this step. Use this as an example. So you see, so this was your status quo, right? Your policy option 1. So just look out for numbers, that number of students which is enrolled as per the current sort of policy. What is the current enrollment status in Meghalaya? And the cost that was incurred. School building. Stand and present this way.
We have here in this criteria. So there's for P1 is efficiency, number of students, enrollment per 10 lakhs in rupees. So in PO1, so the number of students will be 9,54,038, and the cost will be 2,700 crore. And for this PO2 will be 41,600 number of students. Then the cost.
What was your policy option 2?
This is the infrastructure.
Infrastructure. Okay.
So in PO3, it is I didn't note down.
One second. Are you sure the number is correct? 41,600 must be in lakhs, right? So you're saying that the number of students enrolled will be 41,600 if you invest 109 CR in infrastructure. No, right? So it would be 208 into 200, the average, right? So what 208 into 2 will be what? 208 into 200.
216.
Yeah, what was
216,000 students.
41,000? Okay, that's quite less because you understand, right? It's quite less. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll come back to this.
So in PO,
Policy option 3, what was policy option 3?
these are trained teachers, to increase the trained
Sure.
teachers. So we have this 10 lakhs 27,550, and the cost will be 3,000 crore. So PO4, it's the regular release payment of salaries. So 9,54,938. So the cost will be 2,700 crore.
Okay.
So in PO5, we have this, improving the enrollment of this ratio in higher secondary in rural areas. So 663,044 by 180 crore. Oh, sorry. So this will be 180 crore.
There's a big difference between 180 and 1800. Okay.
And we have in the next
The educational
equity,
outcomes that
yeah,
you are
the
projecting.
execution outcome will be, target will be 64.5%. Then PO2, infrastructure will be 20%. Then for trained teachers, 25%. And for salaries will be 80.
Sure.
Then for the higher secondary will be 70%.
I have a question. So how are you defining education outcome? Like 64.5%, what does this mean?
Increasing the number of students, so divided.
Increasing number of students into scholarship. So basically, generally education outcome is, so how do we define education outcomes or improving of education outcome would be that there will be one sort of a proxy indicator, which will be that percentage of students in standard 8 who can read standard 5 mathematics book or English books, right? That's a common Pratham Asar sort of criteria. Is that your criteria, or you are thinking it differently?
We are taking from this document.
Indicators.
This salary
Learning achievement.
that is study.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the percentage is 64.5. This point number 4 there in the indicator in Meghalaya. So this was grade 8.
1 second. Okay, so percentage. Okay, sure. So that's how. I mean, so this should be your response when asked how are you defining education outcome? You're defining education outcome as percentage of students in grade 8 achieving at least a minimum proficiency levels in terms of national defined learning outcomes, right? Okay, sure. 64.5%, 70%. Okay, fair enough. Move to legality, timeliness. Sorry.
Timeliness, like for the we've got 5 years. 5 years, and then for this for infrastructure also we need for up to 5 years. And for this teachers salary also, or train teachers 4 years, then 1 year for this salaries, and 1 year for the enrollment ratio in higher secondary.
Okay. And under
Legality will
administrative
be all
costs,
positive.
all are positive.
All positive. And
So in infrastructure, anything, you don't envisage any administrative challenges? I mean, this is too optimistic, right? That there won't be any administrative cost for, teacher salaries or infrastructure, right? I mean, dispersal of teacher salary goes through several steps, right? Several departments, several desks, several table. Are you sure that it's as seamless and as smooth process as you're thinking? Won't be smooth, right? That's one question. So you need to rethink that aspect. Legality, I can understand that's all positive. Now help me understand. So how did you come to 5 years, 4 years, 1 year? I mean, what was your thought process? The timelines. How did you come to these timelines?
We take this for 5 years because we have to create awareness among the
Sure.
people to enroll their children to the school and all. So it would take time.
Sure.
Like infrastructure, it will take time to process, like tender process and to all the legalities.
Fair enough. Fair enough. For 3
teachers. For 3 teachers, we take it like 6,000 teachers will be trained per academic. So
Okay.
around 4 years it will take.
Sure.
So for salary, we give it for 1 year because all those administrative procedure that we have to follow from one department to the other department. So 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So
Higher secondary option.
So for higher secondary, for in rural area, like since we are providing scholarship and also like student will be attracted, so at least 1 year will take to increase enrollment.
Okay. So I would say that you have to be a little bit more realistic in policy option 4 and 5, because policy option 4, the dispersal of this this payment of salary, you are assuming that you already have a budget, right? You have a corpus of budget, and it's just the administrative thing that you will need to resolve, right? But maybe there's no budget or it's under budgeted, right? Similarly, for policy option 5, the chances, so you're saying that you will give scholarship and the enrollment will increase, right? The chances are high that even if you give scholarship, students might not turn up, right? So you might need to do more of awareness kind of thing. So I think 1 year is too optimistic for this one. So keep that in mind, right? I'll go, so this thing, for 41,600, I think you should revisit this number, because just imagine you are spending 110 crores to get 41,000 students in school. That's, right, that's quite a waste of resource. Right, so I think you need to, so I think you need to see that how much infrastructure that needs to be upgraded. So there will be some data somewhere that public school buildings, so and so public school buildings need to be upgraded. That you just multiply with average number of students in a typical school. I think that should be your number, right? But overall, I think this is fine. I'm glad that the group is thinking in the right direction. The numbers could be haywire, somewhere some pluses and minuses, which is fine. I think the overall outcome is to sort of think and think in the right direction, and to assess whether you are thinking in the right direction, right? So probably I'll give you another. When are we breaking for lunch, Joy? Another 15 minutes. Let's take another 15 minutes. Whatever I have asked you, just revisit those numbers, and I think we are good for the next step, right? So this part, essentially this number, these two timelines, right? Just see if the plus and minus, especially for administrative robustness, is fine. If we are able to do it in 15 minutes, we are good for next two steps. How did this number come? 208? No, so 208 is number of schools? No.
Number of schools newly constructed.
No. See, number of students, not the schools. See, you are talking about efficiency, right? Efficiency means students and cost, right? Not the school, right? So it would be number of students enrolled if you invest. So like this should be in student, right? So maybe what you can have is 208 number schools into the average number of students in each of the school. So into average number of students. No, which is fine. That number is fine. Into 200. Okay. Okay. So we are about to enter the last phase of the policy analysis, which is step number 6, 7, and 8. And because of step number 5, which I told you that is the most complex and complicated step, I think you have done major heavy lifting. So step number 6, 7, or 8, I'm going to combine together while briefing you all, and then probably give half an hour, and then towards the end we'll have a final presentation, right? So step number 6 is confronting the trade-offs. And what do I mean by trade-off? So trade-off means that you need to pick and choose one of the policy options vis-a-vis other policy option, right? You can't have two policy options. You can't have two solutions to solve one problem, right? So that is why we are going to confront the trade-off. We are going to sort of say that, hey, one of our alternatives are doing really well, so we are going ahead with this alternative, right? So that's what confronting the trade-offs mean. One of the policy alternatives, while you were sort of projecting the outcomes, you would have realized that one of the policy outcomes probably are doing slightly better than all four other four policy options, right? Which means that this policy option is a dominant alternative, because this is the strongest alternative. That is why it's a dominant alternative, right? As compared to other alternatives. If there is no dominant alternative, then you have to do trade-off. And I'll just show you how you will do the trade-off using this matrix, which you can sort of, you have to score some of these outcomes. And again, the trade-offs is done on the outcomes, not on the alternatives. So you have to see that which one of the policy alternative are producing the maximum impact and maximum outcomes, and then on that basis, you will start giving the score. So in this example, if you see, I mean, this is the same old example of unemployment, right? So what we are supposed to do is that alternative number one, right? On a scale of 1 to 5, right? You need to score whether the cost for this alternative is good or bad, which means maximum score if it's a low sort of a cost and you are getting maximum sort of benefits. So, right? Number of jobs created, as compared to other alternatives, how would you score the number of jobs created? So again, from 1 to 5. So for example, we have given 3. Time taken 5, possible leakages 3, increase in taxation in percentage 5. So you have to do scoring vertically, right? So in your case, so for example, this is your status quo, this is your infrastructure, and let's say teachers training, right? So your first criteria was number of students enrolled. So, and the second was cost, then third, fourth, and fifth. Now for first alternative, which is the status quo, on a score of 1 to 5, how would you rate the number of students enrolled, right? Is it high, then 5 or 4? If it is low, then 2 or 1. Similarly, for the cost for alternative 1, you have to rate from 1 to 5. Once you are done with the scoring, and again, please remember you have to do scoring vertically and not horizontally, because then it will change everything, right? So you need to score vertically. So in your case, it's 5. So total score, your maximum score is going to be 5, right? Then we will calculate the total score of each alternative. And from there you will get, so if this policy alternative is getting 24 and others are getting lesser than 24, then this is your policy alternative which is going to solve the problem. You understand, right? So this is very straightforward, right? So you just need to score the projected outcomes vertically against each of the criteria. So this alternative 4 in this case is your policy option, is going to solve the problem, right? If there would have been a dominant alternative, which means that, let's say, if alternative number 2, which would have got all 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, then this is your dominant alternative. If not, then 24 by 25, which is the second best, is your alternative. There might be cases that 2 of the alternatives might get the same score, 24. Then again, you have to do trade-off. Then which of these are your priority areas? Is the cost your priority area, or the number of students that you have reached is your priority area? Then you have to again do a trade-off between the two with proper sort of reasons and nuances, that why you are saying that this should be taken and not the other one. That you have to share with us during the presentation. But this is how you have to do the scoring, right? Any questions till here? No? It's quite straightforward, right? Now, the step number 7, which is now you have to decide. Now you have given the scores, you know whether there is a dominant alternative or not. If not, then you have to do trade-off. If you do the scoring, if there is a alternative which is getting like 24 by 25 or 25 by 25, that's your max, that's your policy alternative, which is going to be your solving the policy issue. Now you have to, so this step is straightforward. If you have done the scoring well and judiciously, then this becomes really easy, because the policy option which gets the maximum score is, you have to decide whether this policy option is going to be your final policy recommendation to the minister, right? Just few points to keep in mind, that if you have done all the other steps correctly, this would be the shortest step in eightfold path. You need to decide what to do based on your own analysis, right? If you find this decision difficult, then chances are you have not done the trade-off sufficiently. Like because the first step before that, step number 6 was scoring, right? If you find problem in step number 7, which means either the projected outcomes, there is some problem, or the scoring might be sort of little problematic. If your favorite policy alternative is such a great idea, how come it's not happening, right? So For example, and this is something that you should keep in mind in the final step, which is the 8th step. So for example, you are saying that, one of the infrastructure is your, let's say, dominant alternative, which is the best alternative, right? And you are going ahead with that policy option that, hey, infrastructure is a problem. If you increase infrastructure, the learning outcomes might increase and the overall SDG score will increase, right? This is your logic. Now you have to ask your question. Once you have chosen this policy alternative, you have to ask this question: if this would have been so easy, why hasn't the state been able to implement it, right? Which means that there is some problem. There might be unintended consequences. There might be some administrative cost which you would not have thought about, right? So in the final presentation, in the final sort of policy recommendation, you have to keep that in mind, that, hey, we are going ahead with this. However, these are the challenges that we are foreseeing this, right? So you have to articulate the challenges also. And this is the final step, which is so you will do the scoring part. You will decide which is your final policy alternative, and then you have to give the final presentation, which in which you have. I mean, this is something which my sort of colleagues at my previous organization, they have devised this term. It's called reverse Bollywood format. Now, what is reverse Bollywood format? And this is a very standard format whenever there are policy recommendations that need to be shared. So what typically happens during a Bollywood sort of film? So characters are introduced. There is an actor, there's an actress, there will be a villain, there will be other side actors. So they are introduced. There is a plot. The plot sort of continues. The plot graduates, and towards the end, it's a happy ending, right? Happy ending, all of them meet together, and that's the happy ending. But reverse Bollywood format, you flip the order, which means that you first give the climax scene and the ending, and then you proceed with the plot and with other nitty-gritties. In this case, in case of policy recommendation, how reverse Bollywood format works is that whenever you are giving policy recommendation to, let's say, a senior bureaucrat or minister, you first give the solution right up front. Right? So in this case, I mean, in the final presentation, my expectation to you would be that you will begin with the problem definition, and then you will sort of share, you will tell the solution also. What is your solution right up front? That my problem definition is this: declining of Meghalaya SDG 4 score from 0.55 to 48. The solution which we as a group has found is that we need to increase the infrastructure. Once we increase infrastructure, so and so learning outcomes will increase. The cost will be so and so within 3 years or 5 years. So that's your reverse Bollywood format, right? Then you need to, so that's the first thing that you need to share. The other thing that you need to share are what were the other policy alternatives. So other policy alternatives that you didn't pick in this case, you have to tell about that. And why didn't you choose those policy alternatives? Why only this policy alternative was stronger than other policy alternatives, right? So this is what you have to share in the final presentation, because this is your preferred solution. So preferred solution should come up front. Then these are the policy alternatives. These policy alternatives were not strong enough because of ABC reasons. Because while evaluating on criteria, let's say equity, we found that this score, this policy alternative didn't score higher than the other policy alternatives, right? And essentially, you need to sort of so in a very sort of I'll give you like 30 minutes for final presentation to do the scoring, to take the decision, and final presentation. And I want you to have a separate sheet for the final presentation. So in the final presentation, the first line put problem definition. Below problem definition, what is your preferred solution? Which one of these is a preferred solution? That's one. And then in 4 other points, you have to tell me what are the other policy options that you considered but you didn't pick, and why you didn't pick those policy options, right? That's it. With that, we will end the policy analysis. By the end of this step, if you recall how we started, yesterday there was a vague scenario, right? We started synthesizing data, we started streamlining the information, we narrowed down our focus in problem definition, we had 5 policy alternatives. By step number 8, you will choose one policy alternative which is going to be a preferred solution. So with that, the policy analysis part will end, which means that you have finally found a solution which is going to solve this decline in SDG score problem. Right? That's clear, right?
Yes.
Okay, so get started with step number 6, 7, and 8. So you can use this matrix for scoring, right? You just put score maybe with a pen, or if you have some other color pen, you can start giving scores. Find the sum of the score, total score for each policy alternative, and tell me which one is your preferred solution. Now you need to decide which is your preferred solution. Top score. PO3 was your teacher training. Teacher training, right? Increase in training teachers. Right? So this is your this has got a maximum score. Was this what you were expecting? What were your expectation? That's because that's going to be interesting. What were your expectation? Which what would be your preferred solution? PO4.
I was expecting that. PO4.
PO4. But it is quite closer actually. But I think you lost score in this part, robustness. PO4 was, just remind me, regular salary. Yeah, that's why. So you lost somewhere here. Okay. So all of you were expecting PO4. Nobody was rooting for infrastructure because Kenneth from day one was interested in infrastructure.
No, he said that,
But
if
the
minus now, we change.
minus of because of legality side, getting NOC,
Hmm.
then people will
Sure.
put there
Yeah.
That's
It's a good thought. It's a good thought. But why did you give 2 to 70% this thing learning outcome? Because learning outcome is quite decent. Why did you give 2 to learning outcome for infrastructure?
Bertanya untuk pengilaan apa ni?
We compared these percentages,
Hmm.
and 64.5 was the lowest.
Mm-hmm.
So we give the score
So
scale.
we have rated on the scale of 1 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
That's what. So 70
If it
came
would
So
out.
I hope you have so basically it was not you have to, I mean,
Vertically.
yeah, vertically you would have scored, right? Without comparing, right?
Vertically.
Okay. So you're saying that 70% for infrastructure, 70% learning outcome is not good enough because you have given low score, right?
Low score.
That's what you are saying.
So we
Okay.
75 above.
Okay. So this is your preferred solution, right? Final. This is what
21.
it's going to be. Okay. Now let's move to step number 8, which is tell your story. So in the fresh sort of chart, maybe vertical, you can use it vertically. Problem definition. What is your preferred solution? Why you chose preferred solution? You can say because it has the best projected outcomes across all these criteria. And what were the other outcomes? What were the other policy options that you considered, but they didn't sort of figure out in your preferred solution, right? So next 1 or 2 flip charts, I want to see that thing be articulated. Let's take like 10 to 15 minutes to do that. Just 2 minutes. So this is what you need to share in the final presentation. What is your problem definition? What was the preferred solution? Why it became a preferred solution? What were the other options? Why it didn't get more scores? And what are the challenges that you foresee for implementation of preferred solution? Challenges also, right? What are the challenges that you foresee for preferred solution implementation? Implementation.
Foresee for implementation.
Okay. Unintended, that's right. That's right, great. So the unintended consequences of your preferred solution.
Population berarti
Like Thought no tu nama. Hang tu hang tu. Thought the vertical. Thought the portrait come up kan ni. Thought no tu sheet. Thought the portrait.
Tak boleh cium soal hidden speech. Problem definition.
Thought declining. Naik thought ada definition.
Problem definition.
Em je kata itu thought problem definition. Thought direct definition. Kata.
Ada dash ni terus. Thought ada tema.
Dah. Kolon.
Berak ni sedih yang lupa. Yang group. We are almost complete.
So just mention the challenges that you think can actually stall the process, right? Can actually sort of disrupt your policy implementation.
Yang nak buat lain in depth.
So what could be the challenges for increasing in trained teachers? What have you written? Reluctance of trained teachers to attend the training program, which is a fair challenge. Budget allocation. One challenge could be what? Trained facilitators, right? Trainers, right? Maybe the program won't be able to access good trainers. That could also be a big challenge, right? That can actually disrupt your program. Quality trainers. Quality trainers.
So one problem may be this institution also for accommodating the
Yeah.
teachers.
Absolutely.
Training. We are
Absolutely.
6,000.
Exactly,
Teachers
because
per
it's a logistical nightmare, right? You're managing 6,000 teachers. You're trying to train 6,000 teachers in what, 1 year, 2 years?
In 1 year.
In 1 year, in 12 months, right?
So 500.
500 per month. This is a massive number. This is a massive number. 20 per day.
Some problems.
Almost 20 per day. So all of those things will come under your challenges. Done. Lack of trainers and lack of training facility is added. That's it? It's okay. Okay, then you can probably present this whole thing, right? One person from your group can present. So you start with problem definition, preferred solution, why you preferred this solution, what were the other options, why you didn't opted for these options, and what are the challenges in implementing this policy solution, preferred solution. So one person, you can nominate one person who can take like 3 to 4 minutes to present this thing.
Our problem definition is the declining of Meghalaya SDG score from 55 in 2019 to 48 in 2020. And our preferred solution is increasing in trained teachers. So why we choose this PO
Policy
P-
option is efficient.
why we choose this PO1? PO1 is that it is efficient, and since there is a not the PO1, PO3. So why we choose this? Confused.
Nowadays, a difference of opinion between the two people within the same group.
Why we prefer this increase in trained teachers? Because in the state there are around 18,000 untrained teachers. So like if you will recruit trained teachers, it will take money and time. So it will take another 5 years to recruit 18,000 people. So that's why we try to train those untrained teachers so that so that we won't waste time in recruitment. So why we do not choose this option? Why we do not choose this policy option? Number one is that since there is a big number of untrained teachers, the learning outcome also will.
No, you are still talking about why you chose policy option 3. So you're getting confused. One second. I have the solution. Okay.
Yeah.
So you talk about why you chose this for like 30 seconds.
Like why we choose this PO3 is that it's efficient, and since there is a big number of trained teachers, the learning outcome
also increase.
Sure.
Moreover, there is no legal problem involved in it.
Can you explain what legal problems you're referring to?
Like since we are training the teachers, so we don't need an OC or any other public hearing from the local bodies like the sixth schedule area and normal area.
Sure.
So the other options are status quo and regular payment of salary. Status quo is policy option number 1, and regular payment of salary is policy number 4. So why we don't choose this policy number 1 is that since there are around 18,000 untrained teachers, so the outcome of learning also will be less.
Fair enough.
And why we do not choose this policy option number 4, regular payment of salary, is that there is insufficient budget in the state, and sometimes the government cannot regularly allot the required budget to pay the salary of the teachers. So what is the challenging outcome of this of our policy? The challenging outcome of our policy is that the reluctance of teachers to appear in trainings, and also sometimes the government won't agree with the budgets which is required for setting up these training facilities, and also the lack of resource person. And because like in Meghalaya, like people from Delhi will be reluctant to travel to Meghalaya and give training.
Sure.
And also in Meghalaya, we lack the training facilities. We lack the institution which offer B.Ed course, like government institutions, like private institution cannot provide a quality faculty and all. That's it.
This is good. This is good. You can keep the chart here because your hand is hurting. I think there are 2 other aspects. If you would have added your preferred solution, then that would have been the perfect preferred solution. So in any policy recommendation, 2 essential things. One is your course of action. The course of action is increasing in trained teachers. 2 other information point which is missing, if you would have added, that would have been super useful. Years, number of years, which you already had in your matrix, and the implementation cost. Because that is something which a senior bureaucrat is interested in, or a minister is interested in, right? So increasing in trained teachers over the next 2 years with the estimated cost of so and so INR. That is your preferred solution, right? And then you would have you should have moved to the Y part, right? Extremely sort of, it's really good. Can I just that you use some of the data points like 18,000 teachers, so on and so forth, because you are actually sort of corroborating your this thing. Overall, this was good, and I'm really happy that you are able to follow the process, and it has come out really nicely. Can we have a big round of applause? All right, so you can be seated. So since yesterday till today, today you have come up with a solution, right? Yesterday it was fuzzy, it was slightly vague, right? All you had was a case study, right? So you defined the problem, you understood what the problem is, you went back, you researched, you find the data to back your sort of claims. Then you came up with policy options, and one of the policy option actually stood out, right? So this is what your policy analysis process is all about, right? Have multiple options, select criteria, evaluate options as per the criteria, give scores and weightages, and whichever option will win that's your preferred solution, right? So I hope this was useful, and I hope it gave you a systematic approach to think about a problem, right? Yes. Rather than sort of having a very ad hoc or some sort of other kind of non sort of structured approach, right? So this is a classic approach which policy analysts all across the world use, and this is actually a gold standard framework which governments from US and UK, I mean the policy analysts sitting there, they use this framework. In some cases, this may not be, you may not follow a very clean 8-step process. You might sort of miss, or you shouldn't be missing any of these steps, but you can flip some of these steps, right? Which is fine. So you can have assemble more evidence first to define the problem. So you can do that. You are free to do that, but this is broadly what your sort of policy solution policy analysis process would look like. I hope this was useful. Please, we are going to share with you the soft copy as well as the hard copy if possible. And please stay in touch with us. Whenever you are you're working and you're confronted with some kind of a problem, and even if you're able to use 50 or 60% of this framework, I would say that's a success story, right? Please share with us that you are able to use the framework to solve a problem. That's validation for us, right? That we have done a great job in sort of sharing this thing with all of you, right? Overall, I got to learn a lot from all of you since yesterday. So thank you so much for giving me that learning sort of experience. And please stay in touch. You will be in stay in touch with Joy. I can share my email ID. So if you have any problem, if you need any resource material or anything else, you can directly shoot an email. I'll be happy to respond. Okay. Thank you so much.